Yeah, so how's the juggling? Anyone? Yeah, a few nods. Yeah. Anyone got to two balls who was at one ball, or three balls who was at two balls? Anyone feeling, or just feeling better about it? Kay, how are you doing with your juggling?
To be honest with you, I am very slack on doing things that I can't do. And I would sooner read chapter 17 than put two balls in my hand and try and juggle them. So I confess I haven't really practiced. I've given it to people to do in my classes, and I've said I can't demonstrate it, but I'll show you why I can't demonstrate it. So that's quite a good thing to be able to do, to say, you guess what I'm doing wrong. But yes, but I'm not practiced, sorry.
Okay, so there's a couple of interesting points you make there. Firstly, I'll show you what I'm doing wrong.
Yes.
And
so how can't I do it better?
Which, and you'd like to do it better, and which brain is in charge, the left brain or the right brain, as you're telling us this story?
Well, I guess the left brain is the organizer, so the left brain is saying you can't do it, Kay.
Yeah, yeah. Which defines things wrong and right?
Yeah, left brain.
Left brain, absolutely. So, can I challenge you to do what Miss Goldie would invite and go into the unknown and just...
What, challenge me to?
Go into the unknown, because what you're looking to do, as we were discussing last time, is give yourself an unfamiliar experience.
Yeah.
And that's nothing to do with wrong and right, is it?
No, no.
So here's I hope I'm not getting at you here.
No.
I invite you to have another go and see if you can use it even as a way of coming out of that. I don't want to do it because I can't do it, which, after all, I mean, who feels that? You know, anyone else willing to confess feeling that way? Of course we do. It's natural as adults.
It's just a procrastination, isn't it, really? It's not that I'm afraid of doing it or worried about doing it. I'm just thinking, well, why can't I do something little? I can't be bothered with that. It's like, go away. You don't exist.
I think for adults, it's, and beyond a certain age as a child, that's what happens. I mean, a tiny child doesn't not try to walk because it knows it will fall down.
No.
They get up and have a go and fall down, and they get up and have another go and they fall down.
Yeah.
And they hurt themselves, but it doesn't stop them trying again and again and again and again and again. So what have they got that we've lost?
Well, they're not judging themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a big
not attached to outcomes.
They do get frustrated, though.
Oh, sure, they get frustrated. It's true. Yeah. But it doesn't stop them. But they do have another go and another go and another go and another go.
Yeah.
And it, you know, I probably told you about the time I ran a juggling course when I was first here for adults and children, and we did four classes, each of, I don't know, an hour and a half or something, and I had four mums and 4 children at that class. And at the end of those 4 classes, all the 4 children could juggle 3 balls. One of the adults hadn't even got past 1 ball, and the other 2 had just about got to 2 balls. Yeah. And the reason was, watching them, it was so clear. The kids just got on and have a go. They just played. They just played, and they let their nervous system work it out. And the adults were afraid of getting it wrong.
But the interesting thing is, I don't think I was a child in that way. I was afraid. I never played ball.
Sure.
So I don't think all children, I don't know about anybody else here, whether they've noticed some children struggle with coordinating the sport.
Sure. No.
Yeah, and I did tell a fib because we did practice, didn't we, Suzanne? We did practice and we laughed a lot.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Did I tell you about the little girl at the airport? we were waiting for a plane once that was late. We were all sat it was Ryanair, so we were just at Shannon where there were no seats. So the whole plane's worth was sat in the boarding gate area. And after an hour and a half, 2 hours of this, the man next to me, who was a pushy, rather pushy character, and he had a little daughter who can't have been more than 3 and was already in thick glasses and had a very disjointed run and laughed in a rather agitated way and was clearly a not very coordinated child. And this man decided that this was the perfect moment to teach her to catch. And so he got her to stand some way off and he chucked her teddy at her. And he was doing the classic thing of put your hands up. And she thought it was terribly exciting. Daddy, daddy, hello, hello. And of course, the teddy was bouncing out every time. And this went on for about 5 minutes. The child started to get frustrated and I could hear the father starting to say, oh, I don't think you can catch a ball. I don't think you'll ever catch it. And the child started to repeat it back. And I've been sitting there with my hands stuck under my bum saying, don't interfere, not my business. And at this point, I just thought, I can't let this happen. So I quietly tapped him and I said, can I have a go? So he looked surprised. And I got the child to drop her hands down by her sides and said, now I'm going to throw the teddy at you and I want you not to catch. And I just, of course, brought her to quiet with my energy and made pretend catches till she stopped having a go at catching it, and then again got her to leave her hands down while I threw it. And then when she'd come to quiet, I said, right, now you can let your hands come up to meet the teddy when it comes. And within a couple of throws, she was doing it. And so we did it a few times, and the dad was like, why couldn't I do that? And I said, well, I'm a professional, actually. I do this all the time. So he didn't ask me any questions, but he said, can I have a go? So I talked him through it, and he did it. And I thought, this child's got a very pushy dad. That's already why she's so... but he actually did get her catching. I hope he learned something more in the exchange. But, you know, I don't know if that fits with you, Kay. Were there factors around that made you discoordinated? And I mean, you don't have to answer that.
No, I don't know. I think I can always remember being a very awkward child. And when I went for my first job at about 16 as a waitress, my mother just burst out laughing. She just couldn't imagine me being a waitress because she knew I'd drop everything. So I guess I've always been uncoordinated.
So challenge it.
And accepted it too much, perhaps.
Yes, that's the piece I'm challenging, you see, because had I not been there in that precise moment, that child was going to have internalized, I can't catch a ball.
Yeah. And
she would have then probably spent her entire childhood shamed in the playground, etc., 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 because, you know, she was taught in the wrong way by the wrong person, you know, whatever. And it can happen. It only takes one event that goes wrong. You know, I've met plenty of people who've been told age 4 they couldn't sing, and they internalize it. They never sing again. And it's not true. They can learn to sing, and you can learn to catch. It's just stepping it right back, like I was able to do with that child. She was only 3 years old. You've got a few more patterns on there, but it's not too late.
No, never too late.
Never too late. So would anyone else like to comment on this? Because I think, you know, we've all got pupils who say, oh, I can't do it. I've never been able to do it. I can't do it. Lily.
Yes, I'd like to comment, and having Kay in mind especially. I was awkward as a child, and there was this song by Janice Ian. One of the lines was, those whose names were never called when choosing sides in basketball. And I loved, that was kind of my theme song. And, you know, I hated gym class, and embarrassing, even being in the shorts was horrible. And I've been doing the juggling, and I do come to quiet every time before, and I spend the time on spatial awareness and nose feather, just holding the ball. And I did that for a few days without even throwing the ball, just while holding the ball in my hand. I did come to quiet, and then I started imagining throwing it and just feeling my left hand want to start jumping up before I even threw it, and using inhibition and work with that a few days. And in 2 weeks, like Penelope has said, 2 weeks seems to be significant. Yesterday, I caught it twice in a row. And I usually just do it like once or twice every morning. And it's amazing to me that I could catch it twice in a row after such brief practice in the morning. Because I mean, any of the days, I've just done it like a couple of times. In the first like week that I tried throwing it, I didn't catch it any, you know.
Well done.
Thank you.
So it makes me feel like, sure, I'm sure Kay can do this. And wow, it's interesting because you've learned so many other things in our class. And I can remember a couple of times when Penelope's put you on the big screen, so to speak, and you were right there in of us trying things out with Penelope encouraging you, and you got so
Yes,
many
I'm much
things.
more adventurous now than I used to be.
So I don't think there's any question that you can get it if I can get it, and you've learned much more complex things than throwing the ball. No, I haven't tried 2 balls yet, and I'm going to be happy with one, but I think there's no question you can do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lily.
Yeah.
And I love the program you gave yourself.
Yes.
Not even to ask yourself to throw the ball to start with, but just to feel quiet with the ball in your hand. What a lovely starting point.
Yeah.
And then just to imagine the throw and not even throw it. That's beautiful, because it's scaling it right back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times the key to success is to lower the bar.
Yep.
And my bar was to just keep in quiet, you know, and if I kept in quiet, I was happy with myself, whether I threw the ball or caught the ball or whatever else.
I think, Diana.
Well, I realize now by people sharing how I transferred this task to another activity. For me, it's how I go up and down, how I go up my stairs. So I stand at the landing and I watch myself already being to the top of the stairs, and I have to bring myself back to quiet, to re-coordinate myself to go up the stairs. And it's been quite a practice. I know we did this in the book club, but I didn't really do it. But I'm motivated to do it. With juggling, I know I can do it. So I just let that task go. I learned a while ago I could resurrect it. That's not where my greatest challenge is. My challenge is with my stairs, because I just don't do it well. And it's a task of remembering, because I go up and down my stairs, I don't know, 50 times a day, easily.
Brilliant. And that's perfect, because this juggling game, I mean, this is why I teach it. It is a perfect little model, of the quintessence of the game, as it were, of what we need to stop, to come to quiet, to let something happen. And the reason that, you know, I use a juggling ball, actually we did the same thing in chapter 6 when we came to quiet at the bottom of the out breath and let the in breath happen, because the in breath will happen. It's simply a question of how. And likewise with but you can really see then how the how happens. And likewise with the ball, you've got a very clear indicator of when you have done, you know, you've got it, right's the wrong word, but when you've let it coordinate, because the ball just sails and lands in the other hand. And it is just, it's beautiful when that happens, and it's so clear that you have come to quiet, you have let the body coordinate. So the fact that you took it straight to the stairs, Diana, that's fantastic. Yes, we did it in the Goldie Club. Is that what you meant?
Yes, that's right. Mhm.
That's right. So yeah, brilliant. Are you getting that toe push? Yeah, because it's quite a workout when you get that as well. Okay. Anyone else like to comment on throwing the ball or coming to quiet or Nat?
Hi. So I applied it to chopping wood. I went out to visit a friend that lives in the countryside, and he enjoys to buy unchopped wood. He buys so much, like, I don't know, 3 cubic meters for an insanely reasonable price, like 10 euros. But if you get it pre-chopped, it's just €5 more. But he enjoys the chopping part, so he gets it unchopped. So it's just these like this tall logs. And I was watching, or I started because my son, the last time we went out there a year ago, he really got into chopping wood, and I taught him to do it in this way that came to me kind of intuitively, which is like swinging a golf club almost, where I just have it like down and I let it hang there. And I noticed this time, I'm jumping ahead. I'm not being very clear here, but I basically do a swing and then push down onto the log. And then my friend came out after about an hour and he did it. And I was just like in horror of what could happen to his body if he kept on doing it that way. I mean, I was really scared that he was gonna rip some muscle in his back or something, because he would just like, the axe would be on the top of the wood, so he would have like good aim, and then he just lift it up and bang down like that. And I was just like, oh my God, all that effort that he's doing on the way up, and then really slamming down as hard as he can. He was able to do some strike throughs better than us, but the effort that I watched was just like really scary to me. But as related to the juggling, I noticed that if I came to quiet and I just took the means whereby of this kind of intuitive way that I made to chop the wood, then my aim would be right, and my power would be right every time. And so if I were a little bit rushed on it, and I was forgetting to have my elbows out, and I was forgetting to feel the weight of the axe in my hand, letting it drop down, or I was looking at the log first, any of the combination of those things would set it off course. And I was relating it to the juggling in my mind.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Lovely. So that feeds beautifully into chapter 16. But before we get to chapter 16, actually, let's backtrack just to tidying, because that was the other one that we discussed at the end. And I don't know whether anyone was able to make some fresh decisions, taking that laundry to the machine and seeing the sock on the stairs, or the unwashed washing up. Did anyone do anything around that again? Because it's something we talked about, but didn't particularly explore. Raywin.
Yeah, I did. I noticed even this morning I was putting laundry on and I went to brush my teeth. And I was like, no. Yeah, it's just constant pulled attention.
Yeah.
But I have noticed, and I have made some different choices.
Beautiful. And it makes life easier?
Yeah, it's nice just to it's less stress in your brain or something. It's less busy. That task switching, it gets chaotic feeling. So it does feel calmer to just keep on track.
Yeah, stay with the program. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else have a play with that? Okay.
I think particularly the work that we've done recently with the shoulders and the arms, about the arms dropping and then the elbows coming out before you come forward with your, and you get the length through here, it's incredibly freeing. And then when you want to bring your arms up and you bring them forward rather than back to reach, so you're not falling in your back. So I would say that it's all the things you've taught us. Feeling the feet on the ground. I've got 2 new clients at the moment, and they, without talking for hours because I feel I talk too much, but I've got 2 clients that come together, and one is a very old man who's completely doubled up. And the other one is the woman, not she's older than her, but every bit of her body is tight and tense. And after her first lesson, she said, well, Kay, I never knew I had feet, my feet on the ground, you know? And it's just all those little things that you've taught us that come together, make more sense to me. And therefore, if I understand it better, then my clients understand it better. So I do an awful lot of work with arms now, because that's been, I would say,
So answer your
nothing much
question.
different from what I've been taught in the past. But the way you teach it, I've got a hugely better physical understanding of it, bodily understand of it, not just theoretical understanding of it, but actually owning it, so I can use it in different tasks. And I don't always, and I know when I don't. So I'm always.
So answer
This
me
is
this,
guardian
Kay.
angel here is saying, ah!
Yeah. So just think about when you have those relaxed arms that can just take out, or versus the day when they're uptight and pulled in again, which is the day when you can walk past the washing up? And can you make different choices the days that your arms are in that relaxed balance? I'm just wondering if you're noticing a difference. Beatrice, are you? Yeah. Do you see what I'm asking, Kay?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I probably am better than that. I think that you get better at that with age as well. I don't know. I think when you're older, I think you naturally get a bit better at saying, I'm not doing that. And if ever I have a party, all the washing up goes in the garden, and hopefully it'll rain and it'll stay out there until I'm ready to do it. So it can stay out there 3 or 4 days if I'm busy. And I don't mind that, you know, especially this time of year when you're not using the garden. So yeah, I think I can do that. I can walk past things. I'm not fussy about making sure everything's done.
Suzanne, did you want to comment?
Yes. This past weekend, I did a lot of cleaning and running around and shopping and planting and all. I was really stressed because I had a lot to do, not enough time, friends coming over, and I was running around like crazy. And I suddenly stopped and said, I'm trying to do everything at the same time, like picking this up and then closing the window and then cleaning. But I didn't finish. I didn't finish the tasks. Then I started something new and picked this up, and suddenly I stopped and said, this doesn't work because I don't finish and it takes up more time. I'm trying to do it faster, but it takes more time because I don't finish the stuff. So it was really a good moment of understanding my habit.
And were you able to make a change at that point?
Yeah, I can make changes, and then I fall back into my habit, and then I have to stop the normal process we all know. But,
Yes. Yeah,
it's really about stopping yourself and starting anew.
Yeah. Great. Keep playing with that one. Again, it's such a, if we can't do it, how can we expect our pupils to do it? Yeah, it's a great one. And in terms of where one starts on the learning, it occurred to me years ago that learning is like building a skyscraper. And so many of our teachers try and start us on the 20th floor. And we can sort of learn starting from the 20th floor, but there's always bits we're missing. And I'm really trying to start us from the bottom and make sure that every floor is in place before we get back. And I certainly, my own experience was that, you know, nobody ever starts low enough down there. And it was true at algebra at school. It wasn't until somebody really deconstructed algebra for me that I could do it. I think it's so often. So that's just a thought to add in. And I think it's something we always need to ask ourselves at pupils, you know, where does this pupil start on the skyscraper? Where are they? Because some are higher, but some are really well down. So chapter 16, which is very theoretical, but I'm hoping you're beginning to, did it make sense as we got? So let me come back to how the brain works, because this is at the heart of the book. On page 305, I say the brain does not send instructions to the body like water down a pipe. And for a moment, I'm going to use a different image, came from another author that I didn't manage to get in the book, which is people think of the brain as like a piano. You press a key on the piano and mechanisms operate that then mean somewhere else in the system the note sounds. So it's like the key is we expect that we press a button there, as it were, and something happens. And then we press a different button, something else happens. And then we press a different button and something else happens again. And that's how we tend to think of the brain, is that we've got these hardwired things called habits in the brain, and we just have to activate that pattern and that happens. And this is what we're challenging, that that's not actually how the brain works. But in every moment we are solving, the brain is actually not just the brain, but the whole nervous system, the whole body intelligence, because it's not even just the nervous system. The whole system is solving the challenge of the moment. And we've explored the challenge of the moment of picking up a cup, and we've explored the challenge of the moment of throwing a ball. And can you see what I'm saying when I say that it's never, ever exactly the same? It's, you know, the cup may be theoretically the same, but actually every time I touch it, it's going to have a slightly different temperature. I'm going to be getting to it from a slightly different angle. It's going to have a different quantity of liquid in it. And even if I get the liquid exactly the same and the same temperature, am I really going to position my hand at the same height, at the same angle, at the same? It's never the same. So the idea that we run a preset program is, when you think about it, really, it's daft. What we do get is experience in picking up our cup. We've had lots of experiences with that cup. We know the sort of thing that cup might do. And so that makes us better at solving the movement pattern. But it's not that we're building a preset pattern. And, you know, it's how many times do we tell pupils, all you're doing is building a new habit? No, we're not. We're building new body intelligence for dealing with the challenges of life. So let's come back to CPGs, because, as you remember, can anyone remember what CPGs stands for without looking at their books?
Central Programming Generator.
Not far off. Central Pattern Generators. Yes, very good, very good. Yeah, well jumped in. So central pattern generators, and again, what do they do? Somebody else, what do they do, a central pattern generator? Raywin?
Create rhythmic patterns of movement.
Thank you. Gold star, yes. So yeah, they're creating the rhythmic pattern that underlies walking, breathing, scratching like a dog, swallowing, blinking, running, hopping, skipping, swimming, flying, all the rhythmic activities. But of course, you know, if you're just running down a main road with no traffic and smooth tarmac, you can be performing the same activity. But in general, we're running over rough ground, there's obstacles, there's different conditions. CPGs can't just roll out a pattern. it needs to be flexible, it needs to be alterable. And so we've got proprioceptive information streaming in all the time about where the limb is at any given point. We've got mechanoreceptors in the muscles and information from the ligaments and the skin and all that streaming in. And that gives the CPGs maps. So at any given moment, those CPGs know where your limbs are. If I wanted to start a scratching from this moment of my left ear, my brain actually already knows, no, not my brain, my CPGs already know where my hand is and what sort of tension is in it and what sort of state it's in. So I can then go into a scratch, if you see what I'm saying. So, you know, if you're sitting on the chair and you want to walk, it's a different starting point than, you know, sitting on a stool or whatever. Always so the CPGs always need information so they can be appropriate to the moment, not just inner information, but also, of course, outer information. So we will not move unless we've got sensory information. I mean, I think children who are born, I've no experience of these children, but I've been told that children who are born deaf, dumb, blind, they don't move. Because why do you move? You move because you see the food. You move because you see the toy. You move because you hear mummy. You move towards things. You move away from things. But for that, you have to perceive them. So movement, you've got to have a sensory relationship with your world, and that's what then helps to integrate your movement, because you're moving from, towards, to, and so on. The more we pay attention, the more information our proprioception, our CPGs have got. And this difference I define between vision and perception. Again, can anyone say what that difference was? What's the difference between vision and perception, as I've defined it? I mean, other authors define it the other way around. It doesn't matter, but what matters is,
I think it is taking in all the sensory information, isn't it, as well? Perception, whereas vision, you're just seeing with your brain through your eyes. With perception, you're doing more than seeing, you're hearing, you're placing yourself in context with the environment. And you smell, see, hear, touch. Is
yes.
That
So that's another way of saying it, is to open up to all the senses, and I like that, but it wasn't quite what I was getting at.
okay?
Do we always see what we think we're seeing? How many times have we walked down a road that we've walked before and fallen in the pothole because we didn't know it was there? So perception is actually really seeing what's there, rather than, because otherwise we see on autopilot and we think we see what we see. Perception is actually perceiving what is there, as opposed to what we assume is there. It's
That's the same with reading, isn't it?
Mhm.
When you read, you can read one word wrong because you presume what that next word is going to be.
Yeah.
You're seeing it, but you're not perceiving it.
Yeah, I'm really working with this in reading Alexander's early articles, because one reads coloured with what one knows of use of the self and what one has learnt at training school, and it takes such attention to strip that off and say, what's he actually saying? And every time I go back, I find more that I didn't see before, because I was seeing it through the lens of training. And so many people haven't read those early articles without stripping off what's happened. It's a very interesting process, and you really have to keep perceiving. So that's what we're talking about. So oh yes, before we carry on with that, what's the role, if the innate movement's happening from lower down, what is the role of the frontal brain? Because it's not organizing all the movement. You know, the old idea again that all the movement patterns are up here. They're not. They're happening from lower down. So what's actually the role of this frontal lobe?
To take in everything, to take in the attention.
No,
To everything, no.
no. What's the role of the frontal lobe? What do we do in the very frontal lobe? Sorry, I'm putting you all on the spot here.
Do the calculations.
We do the planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we
mean,
make
that's what I meant. But
Yeah.
I mean, you don't mean intentionally. It's just where it happens, right?
Yes. Thanks, Beatrice. The plan to, if you're playing tennis, yes, I think a lot of the planning is done in the frontal lobe, isn't it? And then the rest of the body's the movement is sorted lower down. We allow it to. I mean, when we go to throw the ball, we make the decision to throw from the brain. We let go. We allow the movement to happen from here, but then the movement is sorted from everywhere else.
So we have to. So we're planning it. We are planning it from all those senses.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's
Like Johnny Wilkinson's brain, like.
Yeah.
Yes. So that the brain is the organizer of it. The brain is the overall organizer. It's the CEO. The CEO doesn't run the company. The CEO oversees the company, but he doesn't do the marketing, the research. He's overseeing it. He's keeping the overview. He's the one ultimately who says, right, actually we're closing the company down. It's not working, but or let's go in a new direction. But everybody else does the work. Whereas the old idea was the brain did all of it. So we're much more like a big company, as it were. So movement switched on and off by motor programs in the brain. And what interests me is that they're kept under tonic inhibition, so that the CPGs are inactive. Your CPGs are always ready to go. All you've got to do is lift the brake and you will walk. And then the inhibition comes down again and says, right, now stop again, which is what, like with the vagal brake that we discovered earlier, wasn't in chapter 5, that your body is always ready to go active, but you need the vagal brake to keep it calm. Does anyone else see a connection there? As I do. And in Parkinson's, they actually can't activate that automatic movement. Whereas in Tourette's disease, they can't stop it.
You're right.
So they get the non-stop movement. Karen.
I just have a question, because you mentioned at the beginning we are not changing patterns, but we are building up experiences, and so we can only change the patterns in the automatic movement. Is this right?
Ask the question again.
Is this so? It is only possible to change the patterns in the automatic movements, the GB.
The CPGs.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, they're like, that child's toy Lego,
Yeah.
where you can build your house in a million ways. And the CPGs are like that. I mean, they're little building blocks. So it's like, which parts of the muscles do I recruit to do this action? Or so they're like choosing the keys on the piano, or the pieces of Lego blocks. So and the more we let the good information in, the more we let the system work well, the better the CPGs will be able to choose the right pieces. That's my image of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much like a computer, isn't it?
In the sense of,
in the way that it's. I mean, I'm not that I'm a computer expert, so I'm not even going to try and explain that. But you are working, so it's incredibly complex, but it's all sorted. It's all sorted for you. It's going to happen if you set yourself up for success. Then it's all going to happen beautifully.
Yes.
It's just amazing, isn't it? Absolutely astonishing how it works.
But if I have a constitutional habit of doing that, my CPGs are simply going to have less muscles available, because these are offline.
Yeah.
It's going to screw the whole of that side.
Amazing.
And then if I'm nervous as well and not looking, my CPGs have got even less to work with. And then I'm going to have some pretty screwy movement patterns. Like
Mm.
Nathan is, overworking person. Yeah. So it's
Okay, trying to throw the balls in.
yeah. So it's people think of integrated movement as just about the body, and the point we've been making all the way through the book is it's an awful lot to do with perception and letting in all this sensory information in order that the body has the information it needs in order to respond appropriately to the moment. And Nat's saying that he'd only got to not be paying the attention to the block of wood in quite the right way, and the swing went off of cutting the axe, and cutting with the axe, and I think we all know that one. And it certainly shows with the ball. You just throw within attention and it goes wild. So walking down this pebble beach, my image of walking down the pebble beach is that the brain makes the decision to walk down the pebble beach. The CPGs start, working with the feet, because although my outer decision might be I'm going to walk to the end of the beach, my inner decision, my short-term decision is I want to go take one step or 2 or 3 steps. I don't know how far ahead that inner decision making goes. And then the CPGs start walking, but then you need really good sensory information to walk a pebble beach, don't you? If you don't pay attention, you twist your ankle. I guess everybody has tried walking a pebble beach. I grew up there's lots of pebble beaches where I grew up. Raywin.
Our challenge in Canada is the icy paths.
Yeah.
And like this weekend I was out in the woods and it was super icy, and I really tried to bring my awareness down into my feet, like really, really awakening those feet, and it made a huge difference. But it also just brings to mind why the smartphone is just the enemy of coordination, right? And everybody's on one. Yeah.
So there's 2 lots of information coming in, to put it very blandly, when you're on that ice. I mean, one is you're looking, but you talked about your feet, and that's where the stretch receptors come in. Because, again, this old idea in the technique that movement is all organized by stretch receptors, and it's just not true. It's the CPGs that organize it. Stretch receptors are just one more piece of information. So when Raywin puts her foot down and it's slightly slippy, if she's paying attention, the stretch receptors are picking that up, the mechanoreceptors in the foot and so on, they're picking that up. They're sending loops into the CPGs, and the CPGs are going, okay, drop that one, get that one in. Work these ones a bit harder. It's adjusting the muscle balance instantaneously in response to that information of the CPGs. And to the stretch receptors. If you put your foot down on a slightly wobbly stone on the pebble beach, again, it's the stretch receptors that pick it up and go, okay, what do we have to do? Do you see what I'm saying? So did I tell you about the experiment they did with the lobsters and the treadmills? So they've done a lot of the CPG work has been done with lobsters who have 10 legs, 5 on each side, and each, they've got these lovely jointed legs. And again, back to that Lego block, this bit has its own CPG, so does this bit, so does this bit. Then there's another CPG for these 2 together and for these 2 together, and then another CPG for the whole thing. And then they wanted to know if the leg on the other side simply moved together or whether they could move them separately. So they put the lobster on 2 treadmills, one for that leg and one for that set of legs and one for that set of legs, and set them off at the same speed. And the lobsters could keep up just fine. And then they put, they tripped up one leg at intervals, put little pebbles so that one leg tripped, and watched the whole body adjust to balance up so that the one leg would adjust, and then that adjustment mechanism would be sent fast through everything else. In a way, they said they only ever tripped for one step and then they caught themselves up again. And then they did the wicked thing of leaving one treadmill at the same speed and speeding up the other treadmill. And they said, again, it only took 1 or 2 steps before the lobsters adjusted. And these legs were having to go at a third again of the speed of these ones. So the system was incredibly flexible. And I think that's just such a lovely image of how flexible CPGs actually are in principle.
Amazing.
When we allow them to be. And anyone who's good at skateboards, which I'm not, I think again, you watch a good skateboarder and you can really see that in action, or skiers, I guess. And anyone want to comment so far?
Well, I have one good example, and it's clarified. It helped me a lot to hear about the dog poo incident that you were talking about, because I was asked by several of my clients about running, and I'm not a runner, and so I thought I'd get the one that is the closest to us in this area, the Alexander teacher, and created a 3-day course with him, coming down 3 Saturdays for 3 weeks. And there was just a group of 4 of us. And he was telling a story about the fact that, because he's a barefoot runner, he's an Alexander technique, Charlie Laram, he's called, lovely, lovely man. He leads people across Africa on wild trekking.
Keep it going, Kay. Keep it going. Come on.
Yeah. And sorry. And he, sorry, I've lost my thread now. And he said that he would run barefoot. We said, what happens when you come through to a field that's full of thorns? He said, well, he said, I was very nervous, but I went on this basis that I won't tread on the thorns. And he said, I just took off and ran. He runs like a springbok, he's very light on his feet. And he said, I couldn't believe it, but I did not tread on any thorns. So he must have been super attentive, and those CPGs must have been just really working well, mustn't they?
Absolutely.
And that, when I read that about the dog poo, that's what really made it.
Nice. Thank you. Diana, I think.
Yeah, I remember one of our congresses in Lugano, and a lot of it focused on proprioception, I believe. And they indicated that it goes down rapidly as we age, which was pretty discouraging. But you do see, and in yourself, you did more interesting coordination. I'm not a skateboarder either, but that kind of thing. And as you get older, apparently that capacity reduces quite a bit, I think, in terms of the hardware, because these were pretty scientific talks that were given around it. Like it goes down 80% by age, I forget which. Were you at that Congress?
No, I wasn't actually.
Oh.
And I would ask the question, remembering the people I saw in Borneo, who,
right,
whether it went down to the same level there. Because, the reason it goes down here is that once we get past the age of, whatever, not very old at all, we no longer have a need to balance or twirl or whatever. But if you're like my Borneo people were, crossing wobbly logs all the time that were slippy as well, they were doing that every time they went down to the stream. They were navigating on mud and slippy logs and goodness knows what, and their balance coordination would be being challenged all the time. And what I saw, and maybe if I look now, I'd see with more refinement, but the old people moved like the young people. You couldn't, certainly at that age, I couldn't see a difference between how the old people moved and the young people moved. So I think a lot of this is because we just become couch potatoes because we can. And I think that's why the vestibular, the vestibular degeneration happens. And that's, again, happens at scary levels. And certainly in America, I think so, like 40% of capacity is lost by the age of 40 or something. Mm-hmm. But as you say, we're not spinning, twirling, bouncing, rolling.
Yeah.
And even Alexander, all happens in one plane, and running happens in one plane. Golfers and canoeists and slalom skiers and we need activities that actually do twists and turns and twirls and backflips or whatever. We need to be doing a much bigger range of movement.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, even just putting the loo roll out of reach, so you have to twist for it. So, you know, as people get older, they make them, you know, they just limit their movement instead of opening it up. So yes, thank you for that. And I think it really is use it or lose it. Now there will be some decline, but I'm sure we can way limit what happens, and probably not drinking too much or smoking too many cigarettes helps as well. But you know, using it is the biggest thing, isn't it?
I think that's a good point. I've even started, it's hard for me to reach my laundry rack, and I have a stool I used to use, and I've stopped using my stool because it's better, I think, to stretch up there than to get on the stool and make it easier. But I have a question about the CPGs. When we practice inhibition, I wonder how that relates to the CPGs, because I thought maybe we're turning off some sort of old CPG pattern that instead of automatically activating it, so that we can have a new CPG pattern. I'm not sure how those two relate together.
Yes, I mean, I think you're right. I think what we're doing is, you see, it's we haven't got to satisficing yet, have we? That's the next chapter, but next section. But when we go to perform an action, if we don't inhibit and we don't look, if we just go ahead in the old way, we will simply run yesterday's pattern. And when we stop and give the situation more information, then the nervous system can put down the old pattern and stop and pay full attention and build a new pattern. And that's the point of the Johnny Wilkinson story that's in the grey box there. That, you know, most rugby players, when they go to take that kick, they will simply be trying to base that kick. And you know, a rugby ball, it's this shape. So they're very difficult to kick straight. So the nervous system tries to base the kick on what happened last week. But the ball is actually in a slightly different angle, because it always will be. It'll be in a slightly different position in the field relative to the player will be more or less tired. And so what the psychologists taught Johnny Wilkinson to do was stop and allow his nervous system to get all that information. I'm sure they didn't ask him to think about it cognitively, but just to look at, sense the wind, feel the slipperiness of the pitch, feel how tired he was, feel where the crowd is, just take in where the goalposts are and where he is relative to them. And I watched some of the matches. It was fascinating. He would look down, look up, look down, look that way, look down, look that way, and he'd be standing there for 2 or 3 minutes just doing this, and everyone was like, what the heck's he doing? Because nobody knew at that point what he was doing. And then he'd go to take the kick and it would just go straight over the bar every time, because he'd fed his CPGs. And so he'd given his nervous system time to reorganize, I think might be another way of saying it. Does that make sense, Lily?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you're doing when you stop. It's what we were doing last time with the ball games, wasn't it? Is stopping and coming to quiet, so that the nervous system had got time to organize all the movement, all the complex movements of the joints and the amount of force to use. It worked it out, not us. Is this adding up? So again, my image for Rufus or your runner, it's like a ship in the bay with the radar. You know, oh, that one's there, that distance, that one's there, and then the brain plots the
Yeah, I think what Diana was saying was really what general public are told and what they think, isn't it? It's what's happening because we're told that we're getting older and that we won't be able to do as much as we could. But nobody says if you do what you're doing now at 17 throughout the rest of your life, then, you know, if you're active 17-year-old, then maybe when you're 77, you still will be able to. But nobody says that. They just say you're getting older, and you say, oh, I'm getting older. You know, I must be getting old because I can't do this now, or I can't do that now. And when, it's like a reinforcement. It makes it okay to be unable to do it.
Yeah, it's so true. And I had a brilliant experience actually when I was 18. I went on this ballet course for a week, which had some very top people teaching on it, and I was hopeless. But you know, there were a few of us along at the back, and the professional young girls who were obviously going to be, you know, high-level ballet dancers, and us who were rank amateurs. But one of the teachers was a woman who was, I think she told us she was 73 or something. And she said, right, I want you to kick up in front, kick your leg up, sit your little bottoms on the ground, she said, stand up again and put your leg down 4 times to the front, 4 times to the side, 4 times to the back, 4 times to the side, turn around and do it all again. So I think I did at that date manage about 5 down to the bottom and up again before I fell over. A couple of the American girls managed the whole thing. She was disgusted. She was made to do that when she was 17. She'd done it every day since, and at the age of 70, she could still demonstrate it. But that's the key, isn't it? She'd done it every day since.
Yes, yes.
And then there was another one teaching us fouettes, you know, which is that very fast, where you put your leg out in front and then you whip it round, you spin and you land again, and being able to do 40 fouettes on the spot on a sixpence is the mark of a great ballerina. And again, this woman in her 70s demonstrated, because, and she'd had to learn it when she was little, and she'd done it every day since. It really went in, because they were such extraordinary feats. So, you know, think about whether you had anything in your childhood that you went, they can do that at their age. It's so good if we've had that counter conditioning, because otherwise we're surrounded by this, you know, get older, can't do it anymore. And it's not just the physical, is it? It is the sensory as well. Raywin.
I remember being at a conference in Spanish Point about 20 years ago, and Elizabeth Walker was there dancing Irish jigs and so on. And then a busload of seniors arrived for their vacation and all trotted off on their walkers. And wow, that contrast really hit me. I was like, I want to be in the Elizabeth Walker camp, thanks. Still riding my bicycle. In her 80s, I think mid-80s by then.
And amazing. When she was at the Limerick,
it was an ATI conference in Spanish Point about 2002 or something.
Yeah, and 2004 she was at the Oxford Congress, and likewise she was still riding her bicycle around Oxford, and she joined in the Stephen Shaw swimming class, and yeah, she was still riding her bicycle at 98, I think, when she died. So let's have a play. Let's navigate across a room. So let's just lay a pathway for ourselves, because is everybody familiar with the superior colliculus at this point? Did we talk about the superior colliculus? It's a very important part of the brain that nobody knows about, and it's in the brain stem. And because we've talked about the parietal maps up till now, where we've got movement patterns in the parietal maps, but the superior colliculus has got a layering of maps. It's in the brain stem, and you've got the vision map, you've got the auditory map, probably an olfactory map, a vestibular map, a proprioceptive map, a stretch receptor map, physiology of whatever your hormones are doing or whatever, that's mapped in there as well. And so they're all mapped together. It's the most complete maps of all, and it's in the brain stem. And there's a visual pathway that doesn't go through the dorsal and the ventral or other parts of the brain. It just goes vision, superior colliculus. So there's a very direct connection between vision and this part of the brain. And if we turn our head and the whole body wants to follow, that's probably organized on that one. But the superior colliculus, this brainstem, and that's probably part of freeing the neck, is activating this area, I suspect, because it's got the most whole body map of anywhere. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our own dog poo path, only not with dog poo, not in your living rooms. And we're going to let the superior colliculus organize it. So let's just lay yourself a path just by chucking some objects on the floor randomly. Chuck some stuff around for yourself so that you've got obstacle course for yourself of a decent length. I'm going to put some books in mine as well. Okay, everybody ready? So to start with, just navigate this path like you might normally do, just probably looking down and picking your way among them. Probably very conscious. I'm very aware of my feet moving at different heights, moving at different, having to take different size steps, moving far sideways and so on. And now come back to the starting point again. And let's just look out across the room and just come to quiet and find your spatial awareness. And seeing the objects, not particularly looking down, just seeing the objects around your room. Seeing from the back of the head. Being aware of your breathing. Letting that liquid light flow all the way down to your feet. So that the whole body comes present and organized for itself, embodied. Everything comes into spatial relationship. You know where your hands are, you know where your feet are. You know where your back is. And now just spotting an object across the room and letting that object draw you. And seeing if you can keep mind in the brain and let yourself be drawn by the object and see what happens with your feet. The spatial, you have got the lower quadrant of vision. So your peripheral vision will sort what your feet need to do. You might just swing your eyes down and up a little bit just to remind your eyes that they have the lower quadrant of vision. So you're just letting your connection between your peripheral vision and your brain stem look after the situation. If you're not certain, then stop, back to quiet. If everything starts to get involved again. We are a whole being. We're not just legs and arms and head and torso and hands and feet. We are a whole body. The vision is coordinated with the whole body, letting it sort it for the whole body. How are we doing? Kazuki? Did you want to share?
My, 動かない。No,
I
動かない。
yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, it's very different. Second time, I can move more easily. Like the previous time, deep front line keeps me straight, vertical, and lobster legs.
Yes. Much more
Move
stability.
independently. I leave them work independently.
That's nice, like the lobster with the feet on the different parts of the treadmill.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
The system works. I like that. Yes, your feet are working independently. Yeah, nice one. Thank you. Anyone else want to comment? Nat?
I noticed when I guess it's kind of an inhibition of not like looking down and making sure where your feet exactly go, that I had a greater sensitivity to what I was stepping on. So when I did accidentally step on something, the foot didn't go all the way down on it. It was like, without me thinking, oh, I'm going to crush this thing, my foot automatically just didn't push down on that part. And like my other foot would then set down and I would keep on going. And then I noticed this, and then I tried to, again, micromanage intentionally. And when I would step on something, it was the full force of the foot on it right away.
That's a very interesting observation. Yeah. Yes, thank you. They talk about elephants never step on a mouse, don't they? But yeah. Yes, thank you. Anyone else want to comment?
Can you
Hello.
hear me? Yes. Hey. I find that whole peripheral vision, bigger unified field and of environment and the space actually affects my sense of time as well. In that I can sense my exact present moment, but since I'm seeing bigger and wider, I have a sense of what you might call future, the near future. So for some reason, that sense of expanded time, I don't know how to describe it, but it gives me a sense of confidence, I guess, somehow, that I can understand what's coming in the moment. And then my present step seems to have more information as it's going down.
Thank you. Yes, I think I experienced that time about the fourth run along as well, that suddenly it's like everything slowed down and became more palpable. There was more time for the body to make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even more time for me to make decisions. It was more time for the body to make decisions, was the sense of it.
Right.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. Anyone else want to share? I mean, the place I practiced this most. Karen, would you like to share?
I just had the feeling that my feet have eyes. So it wasn't possible not to pass the things, but if I tip on it a little bit, so I could look how my leg decides how to handle the situation.
Yes, like somebody else said, if you stepped on something, there was more stability in it.
Yeah. And sometimes I was surprised. I didn't expect the direction of the foot.
Nice. Yes. So the foot's ahead of you, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Fascinating. You're saying things that other groups have never said before. Right. One of the places I practice this is not looking down when I play the piano. I have a dreadful habit of looking down when I play the piano, and telling myself I really do know where the keys are, and I can play so much better when I don't look down. But there's such a lack of trust because trying to coordinate. I'm always playing pieces that are slightly more difficult than I ought to be playing, I think, so overcoming the lack of trust, not to look down and just trust my fingers know where they are, and then the fingers can surprise me. I'll never be a concert pianist, but it's an interesting challenge. Karen,
I just have a question. When I go up or down the stairs, I tried not to look down. And now I will try it, but I think then I will do it very, very slowly. Is this also possible very fast then without looking down?
well, I think it is possible fast, but don't try it fast unless you're certain.
Okay.
I mean, the other one I played with stairs, because in the west of Ireland at night it really is pitch black. Is walking around the house at night in the pitch black, and if you're slightly ahead of yourself, that's when you bang your toes. And actually, I've discovered over the years, it took a while to learn to come really present with myself. And there came a point where I felt really, I now feel very comfortable on the stairs, but I took them very carefully to start with because, the vision input's gone. So, yeah, it's like I was just saying about the piano. It's a lot about trust. Isn't it? And staying with the whole body, because just trusting from a disembodied place is no use. It's finding that embodiment and then trusting. But please don't take unnecessary risks. Yes. Kay.
So we apply to this scenario. I sing in a barbershop chorus, which is it's quite American. So we have to use moves and smile more than necessary. Very good at that bit. We have to do moves, we have to coordinate our singing, and we have to come in at the right time, and that's all a coordination thing. Now I can do the singing and I can smile. That's two things. But can I get the moves in as well? to get the moves in as well as sing and find the right notes and da 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 da. That's like what throws me completely as soon as we have to do a move. And that's when I freeze. So it's the same thing, isn't it, really? It's the attentiveness to everything.
And allowing yourself to be whole body rather than thinking about, I'm using my mouth and now I've got to use my arms, and thinking about the two separate things, because they're not.
But they would be different the central processing generators working.
Sure, but
the
you are
notes.
one body. It's not thinking about it as one central pattern generator is doing this and one central pattern generator is doing that. Come back to my lobsters. You know, there was the bits for each bit of the lobster. Then there was the bit for the pair. Then there was one for the pair of legs. Then there's an up and down one that coordinates what's happening, because, you know, a lobster's legs have got to move in coordination with all the rest. And if you're a millipede, that's an even bigger challenge. But they've got little flowing lines that are going down the millipede or the lobster, you know, coordinating this like this, so that each segment is brought in turn. Now we are segmented as well. So let's just do a very simple one. So just put your hand in front of your face. This is a Delsart experiment actually that I've put into the Goldie Club. So you're going to coordinate nodding your head towards the hand at the same time as you nod the hand towards the head, and then reverse. Okay, easy enough. And now do the opposite. You're going to take the hand away like a policeman and take your back in the other direction. Now you can think of these as two separate movements, but they're not, are they? It's a whole body. It's a whole body opposition. And here's a third one. My head is going to go left while my hand, the palm of my hand, is going to go right. So the front of my face is going to go left and the front of my hand is going to go right. And back again. Now we're going to do exactly the same thing, Kay, while singing a scale. La da 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 da, 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 la da da da, la da 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 da, la dum 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 dum. Now, how was that coordinating movement and sound together?
That's fine. Absolutely good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm probably not saying I've got to get this right in my head. That's what's missing link there when I'm standing in front of all the other, you know, chorus members.
Yep, absolutely. So it's back to that left brain, right brain where we started at the beginning, isn't it? Yeah. Because it's the left brain that thinks it's got to get it right. Yeah, but it's that social pressure, isn't it? I was one of the ones who were last to be picked for the Rounders team. At home, I was a brilliant catch. Put me among my school friends in secondary school, which I hated. Couldn't catch coffee. Social pressure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So maybe decompose your music at home like that and just link it's one movement, just like you just did walking.
Yeah.
We are one body. So yeah, thank you for bringing that. Would anyone else like to comment on that? We've just done a nice piece of multitasking. Raywin.
I'm learning guitar. I'm going to apply this. And it's also terrible, even when I have to play in front of my teacher, when the nerves start and it's like my whole body seizes, and let alone performing. I'm meant to be performing in 2 months and I'm just thinking, gosh, I really need to work with this. So yeah.
Boundaries. Put teacher other side that boundary for a start. So yes, you're finding yourself with the guitar. And again, just like you did before walking the books, you're walking your obstacle path just now. You're just finding you in relationship to you, in relationship to the room, in relationship to the guitar, and then letting your whole body play the guitar. And there just happens to be a garden gnome watching you the other side of the room.
It's good material, I tell you. To
But
work
this,
Yes, that's always been my ambition, to be able to sing and play a guitar. I don't play the guitar, but I
that's one
just
of my
would love
life's
to be.
goals, so I'm on it.
Yeah.
Do you sing with it?
This is why I persevere with the piano, because there's only me to accompany me, and I love singing.
Me too.
Music. So I've had to learn to play the piano, but I can only sing very slow tunes. It's great for breath control while I find my note. I mean, this is actually what this chapter is building up to, is increasingly complex tasks for those of you who read ahead. So yeah, so let's begin on that next time, which is the coordination of reaching and grasping, and then we'll get to the musical instrument bit. Is the third, is lesson 3, actually, where we get into the really complex tasks. So again, we're building it up. So come back to the walking, coordinating the stairs, as Diana was doing. Do keep with the juggling, because again, it's just under tidying, and because they're all part of the same picture, aren't they? They're all part of this, letting the nervous system have the information it needs to organize the task for us. We're not just running a preformed pattern with our eyes shut, which is when things go wrong. Yeah. Okay, anyone else want to comment before we finish? Nat. Lily, yes, and then Nat.
Yes. Has an end date been set for our class, or are we going to continue taking however much time we need to go through things?
Rowan, thanks. No end date. We'll simply taking the time we're taking to go through things, but judging by the 2 previous groups who've actually been through this, we've got 2 more lessons in chapter 16. Chapter 17, we might do in 2, or we might take 3. So if we do maximum 3, chapter 18, we won't do in under 3. So we've got about 8 classes left on that quick estimate. 1 for 16, 3 for 17, 3 for, yeah, well, no, 2 for 16. That's right. Maybe 3 for 17, 3 for 18. Yes, around about 7 or 8 classes left, which is what, 4 months. So we'll be done, what's the week, March, April, May, June, July. We'll be done by summer. We'll be done by August, probably. Yeah. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And to give a heads up, I have trouble sometimes in class knowing when to come in and not wanting to interrupt and not wanting to miss out on something I need to say. And I'm not sure how to apply what we're learning to that. But any help I can get with that, or at some point in the future to work with that would be really appreciated.
Can you expand on that a little more? I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
And sometimes it seems like even when I raise my hand, it's hard to be seen. And then other people, like Kay's a role model for that.
No, I talk too much.
Well, I think
you also cheat by keeping your microphone on.
Sorry.
Well, to me,
right.
I don't perceive you as interrupting when you come in. It's like somehow when you come in, there's no one else talking, and it just seems like an organic flow. But often when I come in, I end up talking over someone, and I don't mean to, but I think I have such old patterns of not knowing when to come in, or being ignored, or like in my family,
Suzanne.
you were interrupted all the time, and you could say something and it's like you're invisible. And so I think it's, it's at least partly me that I just have trouble. I don't know how much of it's fears or old patterns or not picking up on the cues that I need to pick up, but there's something there that would be really valuable to learn. And I don't think I'm the only one who has that issue either. So at some point, if that fits in, because I think we're moving into speaking and, as you said, more complex activities. And I thought it might be helpful, since you all are my group, you may be observing things that I'm doing or helping observe the dynamics of what happens for people who it happens organically, or who seem to have an easy time of coming in or an awkward time or not, to learn from that.
Well, I can share what I observe as presenter. Kay, as I say, simply keeps her microphone on, and you just explode into life, and I love it. It's, because there are other groups where I say any questions and everybody sits there, looks at me, and Kay just explodes into life every time, and it's fantastic. So please don't think we're getting at you, because we're not.
Oh,
and
yeah, I meant
also
that as a genuine compliment, Kay, when I said you're a role model. So sorry for interrupting, but I did want to get that in and not be misperceived. Yeah.
But the other
I
side,
used to be like that though, Lily. I used to be like that. I used to always be the shadow sitting in the corner. And I suppose it's because I started teacher training and I was really terrified of being like you, of saying the wrong thing in the wrong place. Now I'm more afraid of the fact that I dominate the conversation, and I hate that of me. So I've gone from one extreme to the other. But when I've got something to say now, I say, no, everybody's going to hear it, And yes, I'm quite passionate about that, but at the same time, I think I overdo it. I think I'm too mouthy, basically.
So Lily, I'd invite you to watch next session, or even go back and watch the recording, how other people make themselves visible. Now, one thing is Nat does a lovely little hat. That's what you do, isn't it? And sometimes other people, I just see them lean forward to the button. And in general, if I see somebody lean forward with their hand, it usually means they want to speak. And because it's a change of pace, again, I tend to notice it. Nat.
Actually,
so that was
before
a nice clear signal. Yeah.
You called on me when I was reaching for another button, because I'm using my iPad this time, and I was switching to gallery view to see if Diane was still here, and you said Nat.
That's right. So sometimes I misconstrue, but when nothing's happening and one person's leaning forward, I tend to assume that person wants to speak. Kay.
Can I just say, I think Meredith is the same. Meredith, you're so sweet, you're so quiet there. And quite often you've got something to say and you're not seen. And I can see you there going like this and nobody sees you. So yeah, so you're not alone, Lily.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I've and it's some of the two groups that came after you were very big. There were the groups 4 and 5, both had 56 people in them.
Whoa.
So exactly. So we had to train people straight away to put up the yellow hand, because they were on 2 screens and I couldn't see them all. So we had to do a training right on lesson 1. Can you put up the yellow hand? And so in those groups, even though the numbers have now slimmed down, inevitably, they still put up the yellow hand. And the yellow hand, of course, I can't miss. So that's the very simple one. If you're not being seen, please do put up the yellow hand. You all know where to get it. If you go down to the bottom, you press it, you look in reactions, and you'll find there's a raise hand. And it not merely puts the yellow hand up, it moves you into the top left of my screen. So it moves you into my sight. And then when you press lower hand, you go back to where you were again. So yeah, that's it, Meredith. That's right. So if you're not being seen, please do put up the yellow hand. I know I watched back part of a recording the other day and realized somebody had been waving at me and I hadn't seen them. I mean, I do my best to keep, but obviously I'm missing people sometimes. So apologies if I have been missing people sometimes. But some people are very good at, you know, doing something quite big and obvious, whereas other people do something a bit small. And it's, again, it's if one's trying to watch, I mean, there's only 9 of us today, which has been easier. But if there's 20 people, it's like trying to keep an eye on everybody can be tricky. So does that help? But you're not alone, Lily. I mean,
Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking time because I think that's the other thing. I'm very aware of our limited time, so I try to not take too much time, and I appreciate you very much staying over because I hadn't meant to take this much time with it today, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, it's there, so I think it's nice to address it. Yeah. So if you raise your yellow hand or make a bigger gesture, which again is about practicing to be somebody you're not, in a sense, isn't it? You know, think, how would Kay do it? You know,
yeah. Well, I try to be aware, like in-person meetings, I noticed it happening, and I love to sit on the floor. And I thought, well, it's probably easier for people to ignore me when I'm on the floor, and on an animalistic level, I'm seen as less powerful. So I started sitting on a stool, or at least a chair, instead of sitting on the floor when I'm in-person meetings. So I think there's subtle things like that make a difference.
And even on the screen, I'm aware that what I'm seeing of you is this.
Yes.
Bring your camera up a bit so that we actually see physically more of you. Now you're more present.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Makes
bigger
a
now.
immediate difference. You're bigger, and Meredith is quite dark. So again, I'm not going to see you so well because you haven't got a light on you. So those all will make. I mean, they're just little things, but they actually do make a difference to literally how visible you are. Yeah. So just to throw that one out as well. I know lighting's not always easy to manage. Yeah. Okay, thank you all. Next time we'll play with lesson 2, and there's lots of this is where we get into what I call no games. So we may not get through the whole chapter next time, but in fact we won't because it's too long. Let's just go to yeah, let's just go to 313.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
You. Bye.
Bye all. We're meeting next time. It's Good Friday, but we're meeting anyway, aren't we? So I mean Easter Monday.
I might not be there Good Friday. Sorry.
Easter Monday. Yes, Easter Monday, not
Easter
Friday.
I mean Easter Monday. I will definitely won't be there.
I think some of you will. Lily, will you be here Easter Monday?
I also will not be there then.
Right. Yes. Hopefully there'll be enough.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Welcome. Righty-ho. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.